Space power is the totality in which a nation utilizes the space domain for its own national security and prosperity. And I am here at the second annual Spacepower Conference hosted by the Space Force Association. Seems like it's grown significantly since last year. It is packed over there. Really looking forward to taking you along with me as we learn more about our nation's space power and how it is that it might change within the upcoming Trump administration. Also, as a bonus, we have Jared Isaacson, who is going to be speaking on Wednesday. He is the presumed next NASA administrator. Really looking forward to what Jared has to say.
My 20 years of space experience really touched civil and commercial space. So why was I at a defense-related space conference? Well, first off, because the defense sector has grown significantly over the past few years. The space part of defense gets more money in the United States than NASA does. And so we are seeing a lot of commercial space companies in particular pivoting or taking on more of their portfolio in national security missions, because that's where the money is. And so I want to do well with my clients by telling them about these opportunities and helping to open up their doors, whether they want to do purely commercial or civil or national security kinds of missions. Also, I was invited to attend Spacepower as an influencer, which still cracks me up a little bit because I don't consider myself even a micro-influencer, but I was invited to attend the conference to help promote it to all of you.
I am here at the Spacepower Conference where we have been focused on the morning sessions on what the mission is, which I think is a little bit of a different emphasis than what we've seen with the whole conversation with VLEO, LEO, GEO, NEO, all the different orbits, and how quickly we can launch that rapid response. And instead, the conversation is shifting more towards what is the mission, what is the mission trying to accomplish, what are the requirements of the mission, and not so much all the little specifications of where we should be in orbit or what we, how many satellites should be in orbit. It's getting the job done. Space Force Association is the one who puts on the Spacepower Conference, and so Space Force, of course, is a major talking point here today. I'm here with baby Rosetta, astronaut Rosetta here, and she and I have been attending this conference. We're going to see what else we learn the rest of today.
Right, these things take time, and they should take time, but we need to get ahead of them. And so I think as we look at how can we improve that, I think it's relationships, access, and facilities.
We are going to crack the code on something other than what we've been doing for a while, because essentially the space economy has been more or less the same for 60 years. Well, what happens, when industry starts cranking out, spaceships out of multiple factories, and again, it's SpaceX has a great vision for this, but so does Blue Origin. You got Rocket Lab building a brand new behemoth rocket. You're going to have lots and lots of people. In space at one time, and that's why I call it this light switch-like moment, where a lot of things are going to change, whether it's point-to-point travel here on Earth, to and from the moon, or any of those other possibilities we talked about from a space economy perspective.
It has been a packed day at the Spacepower Conference today. I have heard from so many different people from different walks of life. I was sitting and having lunch with the co-founder of Zero G Kitchen, which flew the Zero G oven to the International Space Station, which baked the cookies in partnership with Hilton Hotels. Do you remember that? That was awesome. And so you just never know who you're going to run into here. Lots of colleagues that I've seen, people, some of them I've never met in person, some of them I hadn't seen in years. So really good to reconnect with some people and, of course, meet lots of new people. The conversations on stage have been quite a bit about the direction of the Space Force and national security organizations, the growth that still needs to be done, the emphasis on mission. I just got out of hearing from Jared Isaacson, the presumed future NASA administrator under the second Trump administration. And he really emphasized entrepreneurship, which no surprise, right? Because he was and is an entrepreneur. One thing that struck me is that he has these ties with SpaceX, and so he is already getting criticized about his ties with SpaceX. Can he be impartial? Can he be non-biased? And so I've noticed on Twitter and also here during his talk that he really emphasized and praised lots of other organizations. He kept going back to Blue Origin and Rocket Lab. Those seem to be the two others that he has been top of mind to praise, which I find that interesting. Those are excellent companies, but he's leaving out quite a big launch company here in the United States. So I'm just wondering, did he forget about ULA? Was it just not top of mind for him? I mean, I wouldn't blame him if he just didn't think of it. But it just goes to show where his mind is, what he's thinking of when it comes to an entrepreneurial company. He also talked about his training with the Inspiration 4 missions and Polaris Dawn. One thing he discussed with the training was putting people in situations that are truly dangerous, the high-risk situations where there's a real consequence if something goes wrong. Because you don't want to be on a multi-day space mission with a crew who is untested. And that is going to be something that the space industry, the human spaceflight industry, is going to need to figure out. Do you want your commercial astronauts or commercial spaceflight participants in a high-risk situation during training? Like, what does that liability look like? How long does that training take? And if you don't go that route, if you decide to do a little bit less training, you've got Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin for their suborbital flights doing just a couple of days, a few days of training, very, very little comparatively, compared to a NASA astronaut or compared to Jared Isaacson's cruise, which I think are about 6 months to 2 years, something like that, for those orbital missions. So when it gets to be tourism for orbital missions, and I'm not talking about the Space Adventures ISS tourism where they partnered up with Roscosmos and trained in Russia, and actually had that cosmonauts training. What's going to happen when SpaceX starts flying more orbital space tours? What's going to happen when other additional companies are flying space tours, let's say, on a commercial space station, a commercial LEO destination? What is that training going to be like? One of the questions posed to Jared Isaacson is, this is a different audience that you usually speak to. This is a Spacepower Conference. This is about national security. And as the head of NASA, or presumed head of NASA, what are his thoughts when it comes to speaking to a national security audience? And he really emphasized that a lot of the work that we are going to need to do in the future is going to be done protecting our nation's interests and assets in space with actual people. So people on the ground, of course, but actual people flying in space, which was, it actually reminded me of the space shuttle days, where there was that more collaboration between the Air Force and NASA. So I don't know how that's going to look in the future, but I found that to be an interesting answer, and that got good applause from the audience. Well, I didn't get a chance to see every talk that happened today. I was meeting with colleagues, and also this little one here, she only let me see some of the talks, but it has been a great conference. This is only the second Spacepower Conference. This conference has sold out at about 2,500 participants, which is phenomenal for a second year. So really proud of the Space Force Association for putting this on.
It was a pleasure to shake Jared Isaacson's hand as he walked in the door. He was in a rush, so I couldn't stop and chat, but it was really great to finally meet him in person. We had only spoken once previously before his Inspiration 4 mission, and so it was really good to see him talk for the first time after his announcement of his nomination to be the next NASA Administrator. Now, one thing I missed that I caught afterwards, because I was in and out of the talk with my baby, she wouldn't stay quiet. One of the things I missed and had to catch after the fact was that the question of Polaris program came up, specifically Polaris 2, which is going to be the next mission after Polaris Dawn. And Jared didn't really have an answer. He said it was a question mark, might be on hold. And so really this news was not really news. If he had said, no, Polaris 2 is happening, we are moving forward with it, or if he had said Polaris 2 is canceled, it is done, then that would have been news. But basically he doesn't know, and so therefore we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Spacepower is an annual conference. This was the second year. Huge attendance. So blown away by how much it's grown in just 2 years. So if you want to catch it next year, December in Orlando. I hope to see you there.